Hello from your favorite Grasslands PR team. This month we're back with another reason why these overlooked and underappreciated ecosystems are objectively the best biome. I'm Rachel.
I'm Alan.
And I'm Nicole. And today, for some reason, we're covering our very first reptile, at least in depth.
Well, hold on now. Did we do worm lizards last year?
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. My bad.
And we covered that one in depth because tremors.
Yeah, they live underground.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my bad.
They're not really spiritually reptiles, though. Spiritually, they're kind of worms.
We all agreed, like, within the last couple months, like, wow, this will be the first reptile.
We did,
Even Rachel.
Because I was just thinking about worms.
This will be the first reptile that lives in the land of sunshine.
Yes, with, like, proper legs.
With proper legs and actual eyeballs.
Yeah.
I feel like you're just missing snakes as a group.
No, I'm saying it's the first reptile covered with proper legs.
Okay, sure.
So
That's true. That is a fact, I think.
thank you. Anyways, okay. Today, we're talking about a lizard in the Teiidae family. Does anybody know what the Teiidae family is? This surprised me. I did not know this about these reptiles.
Iguanas.
Komodo dragons.
No. These are the whiptails and the race runners.
Oh.
And why that's surprising is because we're talking about tegus, which are very large, and whiptails and race runners are not. They're very small.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But they're all part of the same family. I don't know why tegus are so big. I didn't look into it, sorry. And there's, turns out, a lot of tegu species, and some of them are small-ish. But we'll be talking about the biggest one.
Argentinian.
Yeah.
I love Argentina.
Yes. Black and white tegu, also known as like the giant tegu, very rightfully so. They are very, very fun. And they are in the genus Salvator, which also includes the red tegu and the yellow tegu as well.
Okay.
But those guys don't get quite as big. But the black and white tegu is found throughout kind of southeast, coastal-ish South America. They have a fairly large range, but it is very much dedicated primarily to grasslands. They are pretty adaptable and they will wander into more forested areas and even like marshy areas. But if you look at like where grasslands are in South America, you're going to find tegus there, basically.
Nice.
They love it. They also like more savanna type environments. But their kind of main hotspot for where they hang out is in Argentina, in the Pampas, and then into like some hilly savanna areas. And even there's a few in Brazil's Cerrado.
Yay!
So, which I did not realize they stretched quite that far.
Yeah.
But absolutely are not in the Amazon rainforest. That's just too much for them.
Is that like a geographic separation that has led to like speciation?
Not for the black and whites.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, they kind of, that's just like the edge of their range is the Cerrado. They don't go any farther north than that. But that's just kind of like, they're less common there. Their kind of hotspot is in Argentina.
Okay.
So
Fantastic.
yeah. They also thrive along roadways and the edges of cities. They love human-made disturbances.
Okay.
Really jive really well there. And can be a pest inside of cities because they're just so big.
I was going to say pest almost feels like it wouldn't describe the nuisance they must cause because they're so big.
Yeah. These guys can be about 4 feet long, 1.2 meters.
Nice.
And 18 pounds or 8 kilograms.
Okay.
These are very large lizards.
Yeah. It's like a scaly coyote.
Okay, sure, yeah. I'll take it. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, honestly.
Wow.
And they also eat a really wide range of foods like coyotes, very much omnivorous, and will kind of eat whatever's around. When they're little, they like to eat more like high protein foods, but they will eat a lot of problematic things as well, which we'll get into. And yeah,
Problematic for whom?
Conservation
Oh, okay.
in general.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
they're highly invasive.
Like a scaly house cat.
Yeah, that too. I guess, yeah, we can't trash coyotes.
No,
Coyotes
yeah,
are
yeah.
not invasive. They're doing great things. I love them. Coyote hype train forever.
Are there neighborhoods in Argentina where they like have colonies of tegus that they call community tegus that they take care of and they feed? And
Not that I know of, but I'm not going to say no.
they TNR them.
I mean, who knows? But yeah, these guys, they're so big. They're extremely hardy, like I mentioned. They're also extremely sassy. These guys are strong and they know that they're strong. And their displays, if they're like cornered, a large animal is not afraid to bite you. It's not afraid to rush you if it feels threatened. They'll hiss and stomp and kind of like raise up on their little tippy toes and try to make themselves look really big. They'll tail whip you and it hurts. It's going to leave welts.
Nice.
I feel like when people hear about like a lizard tail whipping you, because there's a lot of lizards that will do that, they're like, oh, a tail whip, okay. But like those tails are strong.
Yeah.
And like it hurts. It's not just like a snap on the wrist. Like it's gnarly.
Yeah, it's a muscly deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I feel like the tips of them are pretty thin, so you're getting like a lot of power on like a very narrow area, and that's what really hurts, you know?
Yeah. If they get
Focus
you at
the
the base
pressure.
of the tail, it's not going to hurt that bad. But their tails are like easily a third of their body. And so, yeah, it's a long, they got a lot of range with it, you know? But yeah, and I read this one paper that I thought was interesting about how adult animals, and specifically even like larger adults, are more likely to be defensive and like will not run away unless they feel like they absolutely have to. Like they're gonna hold their ground, and a lot of times it's not even like they're just like sitting there like watching you, like, I dare you to try it. And then when you get close, they're like, okay, I'm gonna tail whip you. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting, and this is like I guess a pretty well researched phenomenon, which makes sense. Like a lot of animals do this, where the young are very, very flighty, and then as they get older, they become more confident and, I don't want to say aggressive, more defensive. So
They're very like highly territorial.
not so much territorial. They move around a lot.
Okay.
There's not a lot of studies that I could find, at least in the wild, on these guys as far as like movement patterns. But because of their invasive tendencies, there are studies, like here in the United States, for example, trying to see how wide their range is and like what are their habitats and what, like, you know, how they're moving throughout these habitats, because that'll help deal with how invasive they are.
Sure.
And there was one, I didn't write down the notes for it, but it was looking at a male and a female and how the male was like following after the female and seemed to be mate guarding her, at least to some extent.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So like they are somewhat social. Like they don't really like live in groups, but at least during like the breeding season, they will pair up at least to some extent, which is, yeah, interesting, because not super common in reptiles.
True.
But they move around a lot. All that to say that, again, these guys are extremely invasive. I'm not going to harp on it for too long, but they're really good at surviving. They're great at what they do. They're sassy. They're big. They also lay a clutch of about 40 eggs a year, which for like a lizard is a lot. I looked up some other, I was like, that seems like a lot, but I looked it up because I want to be scientific. A lot of smaller lizards, you know, literally lay 1 egg a day. And yes, they will have multiple clutches. So then you're looking at like maybe 10 to 15 young in an entire year. And the one exception to this is going to be chameleons.
Oh.
Which will have clutches of like 50 to 100 eggs.
Jeez.
Oh,
Yeah. And then I was like, but why? And there's a hypothesis, which makes sense to me, that, ambush predators are able to carry more eggs because they don't have to move around a whole lot. They're just hanging out. It's okay to have a bunch of eggs and be like weighed down and have like this really high energy burden of motherhood when you just kind of hang out all day.
Interesting.
Yeah, makes sense.
So a lot of chameleons being ambush hunters have larger clutch sizes. And then I guess Tegus just being king of the lizards, except for, the actual big giant ones that we won't talk about today. They're just so big that they can't have big clutches, I guess. I couldn't find any information about why their clutch sizes were so big.
Just body size enables it because they're highly mobile, so that would go against the traditional thinking on. Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess they're just real tough, so they just have lots of eggs too.
Tough.
And again, some of the things that they prey upon are a huge issue. They love eggs, which includes birds. It includes even like alligator eggs and like turtle eggs and like basically any eggs they can find because they just love them. Okay. They eat adult birds, small mammals, armadillos.
Oh my God.
Kind of egg-shaped.
Yeah, kind of egg-shaped. You're right. Yeah. They must be confused or something.
Definitely not. Oh my God.
And they'll even go after young alligators.
Wow.
So just like,
bold.
Yeah, proving the ferocity of these animals.
Yeah.
I'm already seeing why they would be a problem in certain ecosystems. Like maybe Floridian ones.
Yes, absolutely. They love fruit and they will eat even carcasses. So they literally eat whatever. And there was a study that found threatened gopher tortoise babies in a tegu stomach.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Mm-hmm. And they prey on a lot of, ground nesting birds that are also threatened and things like that as well. This problem, it's so bad that a lot of places in like Georgia and Florida, for example, it is advocated by the State Department and like by, local sheriffs and stuff that you kill them on site. Like there's no, removing them, like it's you kill them and there's no bag limit, anything like that. Like it's just so bad that is the only option left.
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like there's only a few invasive species in the US anyway that like reach that level of like they gotta go.
Yeah.
Right now. No question. Just get rid of them.
Yeah. And like I said, their range stops at the Amazon rainforest. Mm-hmm. So at least in America, this problem is entirely because of released pets.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this a little bit, but on the podcast before, like, just please don't release your pets. It becomes an issue. Either your pet dies a really horrible death, or, they're wreaking havoc on the ecosystem. Like that's just, there's really no other outcome. And it's just not great. Give it to a friend, give it to your local humane society. Like there's so many options out there. I don't know why people release their pets. And this goes for like feeder animals too. Mice, rats, minnows, crayfish, even earthworms that you get for fishing. Like there's invasive earthworms. Like just please don't.
Yeah.
And what would you say also as another alternative? Perhaps maybe don't get a 4-foot-long, hyper-aggressive, ravenous lizard as a pet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do your research before you get an animal so that you don't have to give it up.
Yeah.
Be prepared to take care of it for its whole life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And especially with reptiles, that's 20, 40, 60, 100 years, depending on the reptile. Mm-hmm. So this is a lifelong commitment. Like, it's not a joke. Like, you need to be prepared to take care of that animal.
That's right. Prepare to get tail whipped for 40 years, bud. Okay? You ready for that? You want that commitment? I don't think you do.
Yeah. And guess what? Big lizards eat a lot, so they're very expensive as well. So yeah, just please do your research, guys. But that's enough harping.
I think there's also something to be said for at a level beyond individual people. Like, this is the sort of role that a government should play too in deciding, like, hey, we should not be allowing people to keep these as pets. Or, I mean, even in the case of like earthworms and stuff, it's like if that's wreaking ecological havoc, then people shouldn't be allowed to sell them, you know? Like, we should be finding alternatives, and there should be something stepping in to like prevent this on a mass scale, because individual people, like, you can't be informed about every single thing.
That's true.
Like the point of having other people who take the time to look at this and are experts in their field disseminating that information and advising us.
And listen when people tell you things. So
right.
The last, I say last, it's the biggest part of this podcast, I promise. We're not like almost done. But the last thing that I wanted to talk about and what makes them very unique and what got me excited about tegus as a topic is something that I had no idea was even possible for a reptile to do. And something that, again, makes them very unique and really good at being adaptable to different environments and really good at being invasive. And that is that tegus have, during certain parts of the year, the ability to be endothermic.
Oh, what?
Okay.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, like birds. I mean, dinosaurs. I meant dinosaurs when I said that, but then I was like, well, okay. Anyway, Whoa.
Well, because that was something I was wondering about. It's like, okay, yes, they eat everything in sight, but also they're lizards, right?
Yes.
So like metabolically, they don't have to eat that much. Like they don't, like they're large bodied, yes, but like they're not necessarily always having to be like on the constant like just consumption.
Move,
Unless, I guess, if they have to like maintain a
body temperature. Yeah, if they're burning energy to maintain a body temperature like a freaking mammal, that's crazy.
Interesting.
So this is, as of yet, completely undocumented in any other reptile, except for like an edge case that we'll talk about. But the way that they do it is completely unique to tegus.
Wow.
And for those who are like, wait, what is endothermy? Humans and mammals and birds in general are endotherms. It's, inside heat. It's creating your own heat through various metabolic processes. Depends on the kind of animal. They do it slightly differently versus, reptiles are ectotherms, outside heat. They're, what we call sometimes cold-blooded versus warm-blooded.
Which is a misnomer. I think that's why we prefer like ectotherm and endotherm, because ectotherms don't want to have cold blood. They just get their heat from something else besides their own body.
Yeah, they're relying on the environment. So that's why lizards and snakes sun themselves, or if they get hot, they burrow, things like that.
Right, because their core temperature can easily exceed ours if they're in the wrong, if they're in a very hot, like side of a road environment.
Yes, absolutely. But for tegus, it turns out that this endothermy is related to their reproductive, and specifically a lot of hormones that are raging through them at this time of the year.
Fascinating. Oh my goodness.
So,
tegu PMS, is that they have puberty and PMS, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We haven't even, So puberty is something that like young tegus go through. It's tegu puberty. And they just, especially males, will get just slammed in the face with hormones, and they get, I will say, aggressive in this case. It's not defensive. It is aggression. And it can last for months because they're just full of hormones and testosterone, and like they're just on the prowl and trying to, find, a spot for themselves to live and find mates and all that good stuff. But it turns out this just kind of happens to a lesser extent to males and females every year. And this is when they are considered like basically true endotherms.
That's crazy.
Interesting.
And so as they come up from hibernation, they both sexes will become very, very active. And for males, their testosterone levels are rising like 20 to 30 fold in their bodies.
Oh.
Yeah, so huge spike in testosterone. Even their jaw muscles will grow to be 4% of their body mass.
Shut up. That's
huge.
crazy.
Yeah, just their jaw muscles.
It's wild.
Insane.
Do they have just cut jawlines?
I mean, they kind of do. If you've ever seen like a male adult tegu, they have like
No.
jowls.
Dang.
And yeah, it's gnarly. And like it looks blubbery, but turns out a lot of that is muscle.
Yeah. Well, I guess any muscle that's not like active is kind of blubbery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huh.
But yeah, ridiculous. Females during this time are hard at work building a nest. They will build their own tunnels and create a nest inside with like sticks and stuff, like actual nest building, and protecting that nest as well. Her eggs are a huge investment at about 40% of her body mass. And for the average reptile, it's estimated that their body can only exceed like external temperatures, like the ambient temp, by about 0.5 to 1.5 Celsius. So by these calculations, tegus based on their size really should only be able to raise their temp by like 0.2, like on a good day, like just like ambient hanging out in a burrow kind of situation, not like, sunning themselves.
Mm-hmm.
However, there was a 2016 study that was really, really cool, and I will link it in the description. And they found that tegus in the middle of the night, so not like, actively basking, but like at 4 a.m., which is, kind of the lowest temperature that they are experiencing, their resting body temp is about 5 to 6 degrees Celsius above ambient, or about 10 degrees Fahrenheit. So
Wow.
it should be like 0.2, but it is actually 5 to 6 Celsius above ambient during the
Celsius too. Wow.
during the coldest part of the night. So they are keeping this heat. It's not just like when they're running around; they're keeping this elevated body temperature.
Yeah.
Wow. Is that both sexes that do that?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, they did not find a difference in sex.
Crazy.
With these body temps.
I don't know, because I was trying to figure out like why that would be beneficial. I'm sure you'll go into it, but my first instinct was like, I guess if they're nesting, like does that somehow help the egg development? But that wouldn't explain why males also do that.
Yeah. It's crazy. And they found like, because again, these are like the lowest temperatures that they are experiencing. As this animal is like digesting food and running around and being active, they found that the max temperature differential between like the animal's core body temp and ambient air temperature increased to about 10 Celsius or 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So their internal body temperature is 20 degrees Fahrenheit higher than the ambient, which is insane, like especially for a reptile.
Yeah. Wow. And in the wild, they're breeding during the hot time of the year. I mean, they're all hot time of the year. Huh? Yeah. So
it's in the early spring. It's right after they're out of hibernation. They are immediately kickstarted into like this hyper like active and hyper aggressive sometimes nest building and mate finding time of year. So it is early in the spring, which for South America is fall for North America.
Right. It's like south.
Yeah.
The other hemisphere is spring.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. I was like, is this our spring where it's technically colder down there? Or like, again, it's like wet and dry usually is the seasons down there. But.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's like October through like late November is when all this is happening.
Fascinating.
When all the delicious birds return to lay their eggs.
Yeah.
No.
Then it's time.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, and they found, the study was especially interesting to me because it was an entire year of data they collected on these animals. So, they saw the peak of this happening in spring as they're looking for mates and all this. But even outside of breeding season, they kept a body temperature 1 to 2.5 degrees Celsius above ambient. So like, and there was even a slightly elevated body temperature during like brumation in the winter.
Wow.
Not much, but they were still like keeping body temperature up at least a little bit.
That's wild.
Yes. And it wasn't just, they studied reptiles or tegus that were outside, kept in pens, but they were outside being able to do whatever they wanted, be in a burrow, be outside, whatever. But then they also took some animals indoors as well and kept them at a constant temperature just to see how they would react. And those animals still, again, had the endothermic capabilities. And so it's not like just environmental cues. Like taking all that away, they're still like warm and active and keeping these abilities, which is crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. So we don't know for sure why. Part of it, they also found that these tegus in particular would share a burrow, and the ambient temperature of the burrow with these warm reptiles would be warm. Like the burrow itself would be warm, which can help with incubating eggs. And being warm means that you can also wake up earlier in the morning. You don't have to wait for the sun to come up to warm you. You're already warm. So they're being active earlier in the day. They can stay active later at night, which gives them a one-up on finding food, both like, you know, getting birds that are still sleeping,
No.
but also outcompeting other animals in the ecosystem that might be going for the same food sources.
Wait, so they're diurnal, right?
They are.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that like they're not even using this to be nocturnal or anything like that. Like,
yeah. Well, okay. And that's important because the origins of endothermy is like hotly debated, apparently.
Oh.
I've never dived into this. But there are different hypotheses, and tegus being, you know, especially endothermic during the breeding season has a lot of support for the parental care model of endothermy, because you know it's especially apparent during the breeding season and during when they're taking care of their nest. Other models suggest that endothermy is more for foraging, or it's more for helping increase your activity capacity. So being active at night. If you're warm, you can do that. If you're not warm, you gotta go sleep because you can't find an outside source of warmth.
Yeah.
So them being diurnal, but still for some reason being pushed to be endothermic will suggest that parental care model is, you know, maybe more accurate for the evolution of endothermy as a whole.
Yeah. Wait, what is the parental care model of endothermy evolution then? Because I don't easily see like how that translates.
Because they are being active during the breeding season and during like taking care of that clutch, versus like after they hatch. Like the other models are saying, you know, you're highly endothermic year round, so that you can hunt at night or be active at night.
Yeah.
Or there's also a like feeding young. Like they start dipping off in their endothermic abilities after the young hatch. Once they hatch, they're on their own.
Oh.
So there's that push that maybe it's actually post-breeding. Like that's another hypothesis.
Okay.
There's like breeding, there's post-breeding, and then there's like the activity models,
Right.
basically.
But then why does generating your own warmth help you with the breeding process?
Because they're able to be more active for the production of offspring. So finding a mate,
Okay.
and chasing down mates and mate guarding and building a nest and all those things, and
Yeah.
taking
Right.
care of that
It
nest.
reduces the time investment that they'd normally have to spend just staying within the critical limits of where their body temperature should be, whether by
Yeah.
basking or cooling.
They can focus.
It gives
on-
them, the freedom to just
Right.
move in their environment
Yeah.
at a stable temperature.
Yes. Thank you for explaining it.
That
better.
makes sense.
No,
yeah.
yeah.
I was like, I don't know how. Yeah.
In my mind, I kind of forgot that like for reptiles, you do have to
It
obviously,
takes time.
dedicate a lot of time to just like getting warm enough to do stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like a lot of time. Like you have to wait for the sun to come up, but then you have to bask for like an hour or maybe more.
Yeah, depending on how cold it is ambiently. Yeah.
And then you go hunt and you get cold again, so you have to go bask again. Like it's a lot of time commitment to be cold.
Yeah.
And flip flops too. If you're out hunting and it's summer and it gets too hot, you have to then take a break and like go under a rock or go in a burrow. So it's a time commitment the other way around with heat as well.
Okay.
I had another weird question, and I know this because this probably hasn't been like, it sounds like it has not really been super well researched yet, because it is kind of it's such a rare phenomenon with reptiles.
Yeah.
But like, does them being endothermic and staying in a nest, does that have any effect on like the sex ratio of tegus? Like, because they would have like temperature based sex determination of their eggs, right?
Yeah. I honestly don't know if all reptiles are like that. I know that a lot of reptiles do have different sexes depending on the temperature that the eggs were raised at, but I don't know if all of them do. That's a blind spot for me.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't know how it works in tegus. That was something that I thought of, and then I got distracted. So I don't know. I didn't research that.
I was actually under the impression that was not a common thing in reptiles, and that it was a unique thing for things like crocodiles and alligators. But this is also a blind spot for me. So I'm just going to like balance the scales by saying I thought it was different.
Yeah, I do think I don't think it's universal.
Oh, okay.
I know that there are some animals in the pet trade that like aren't alligators that definitely are temperature dependent because people purposefully like, oh, I need more breeders, so I'm going to raise this clutch to be mostly female. I know that is a thing. I honestly couldn't tell you even what species it was that I've read about that in. But yeah, I don't think that it's universal. I'm just not sure.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think, I mean, like reptile, well, this is just showing I have a lot of blind spots with herps, but like reptiles in general don't have like a sex chromosome, right? I need to look all this up. I don't know, man. We'll just knock this out of the podcast. It was a weird tangent anyway.
No,
wait, do they?
Surely they do.
Because I thought they did, but like maybe it was like the epigenetic expression was different for the. I don't know. Hang on, let's look. This
I mean,
up.
like even like bees have like bugs have
a
things. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and like, well, no, hang on.
It's just different.
Yeah, this is the thing. I'm not
even like mammals to birds. Like it's different. It works fairly similar-ish.
Okay, they can have both. They can have both temperature determinant and sex chromosome determinant, but it's not clear to me whether those things are mutually exclusive. Like you have one or the other, or like how those are related.
Well, because I had always been under the impression that like temperature determinant is because they didn't have a sex chromosome, and because it's like, so like, you know, when you have like a sexual chromosome, it's like genetically, it's like it's, you know, the embryo is like going to be what it is. But it's like the temperature determinant is because at a certain critical point, it's, you know, you get the synthesis of estrogen versus testosterone happening within the egg. So like I don't
But, like some birds can mess with like the sex of their offspring, so I don't know.
Okay.
It's all weird.
Requires more research. Here's what I think is going on. Here's what I think is happening. I think that embryos can have sex chromosomes in reptiles, but there are some reptiles where temperature is the ultimate determination and can alter the expression of genes because of changes in sex hormones that are regulated by temperature, because there's like certain enzymes and like proteins and whatever things like are altered by a higher temperature being present.
Sure. And
so that changes the hormones present in the egg, which alters the gene expression of the embryos.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's like a feedback situation or something, like a chicken and the egg, but like with the egg itself.
I don't understand what you mean, but I think it's like, it sounds to me like it's like an epigenetic thing. Like the expression of the genes is determined by outside factors and not determined by the presence or absence of the genes themselves.
Okay. Fascinating.
Or the chromosomes themselves, you know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah, no. I see what you're saying. Yeah. I don't understand anything.
It's just whether or not it's flipped on and off.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I do think they all have some sort of sex chromosome.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always matter.
Okay.
It doesn't always end up.
It's there. Yeah.
Yeah, being a determinate factor.
Yeah, because you can bake your reptile babies into being trans.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. Kind of. Yeah.
Hormonally. Embryonically. Does that make them all intersex? No, because they're still This is so interesting.
I mean, kind of.
Yeah.
Because the genes are there.
So the gene expression is just different from the physiological output.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything embryonically is kind of intersex at a certain stage of development, though, isn't it? Yeah, for sure. So it just ends up going, well, one of many different ways, but yeah.
Bodies are fascinating.
Yeah. All right, we'll whoever edits this can decide if that's a tangent worth keeping in. It is interesting.
There's some good
it's
stuff
not
there.
super relevant to your episode, but yeah.
No.
Just curious.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's fun. I mentioned this earlier, how there's a couple like outlying examples of like kind of sort of endothermy in other reptiles. But really the only other example is found in brooding pythons. So again, parental care. There are certain pythons that the females will actually wrap around their eggs and shiver, raising their body temperature and providing heat for their eggs.
Interesting.
However, that is like specifically like muscles contracting over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
It is not like just metabolically I am warm like tegus are.
Right.
So it's really interesting. And as animals move around, again, they'll naturally become a little bit warmer and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I did find one study that on rattlesnakes, they were like, how much can we feed a rattlesnake and then see how hot it gets afterwards? Which is such a really specific question. But I found it and I thought it was interesting. So good job, guys. And it turns out that even rattlesnakes that are fed meals that are like 50% of their body mass, their metabolic rate is skyrocketing dramatically, like 10 times after that meal.
Jeez.
But they have a raised body temp only like less than 2 degrees Celsius above ambient. So still like a very small amount compared to what tegus are accomplishing.
Interesting.
So it's not just metabolism and things like that driving this.
Yeah.
Because we did mention tegus eat a lot and they're very active, but there's more going on underneath the surface.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes down to hormones, not only just sex hormones, but also thyroid hormones. And this actually triggers a tegus muscles to produce more mitochondria. Which I didn't know was
a cell.
Yes,
in the powerhouse of the lizard world.
Yeah, the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. They have more of them, so they are able to produce more proteins like ANT, which is actually what produces heat in birds, and that is stored, and it's where, ATP, which is a lot of acronyms. I'm not going to go into all of them, but ATP
adenosine triphosphate.
Good job. It's the thing that's moving energy around your body.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need a lot of ATP to move that energy around and to like be able to do things, whether that's contract muscles, digest food, blink your eyes, like whatever.
Exactly.
You need ATP and you need mitochondria to do that.
That's right. Now let's all recite the 13 steps of the Krebs cycle. Rachel, you start.
I refuse.
Yeah, absolutely not.
No, okay. That's so at the cellular level. Then they are different than other lizards.
That's so cool,
and it changes throughout the year.
Yeah, that's really wild.
Okay. It's insane. I also thought it was interesting that UCP is the heat generating protein that mammals use in their endothermic reactions. It is not ANT like tegus in birds. I can't tell you any more information than that. They're different.
Just different.
What I'm hearing is that mammals may have evolved endothermy separately from birds and reptiles who share a common ancestor more closely.
Yes.
Makes
No,
sense,
absolutely.
yeah.
Like they are metabolically and cellularly completely different processes, and we don't know how or why that is. We don't know, like, maybe they had different pressures. Maybe birds and reptiles, they follow the parental model more closely. Maybe mammals do something different.
Yeah, maybe for them it's like nocturnal or
maybe it is movement based and activity based. And like I said, it's hotly debated. I didn't go deep into it because like people have opinions about this.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
It feels like a reason why you should go deep in it, because a lot of people have opinions and there's a lot to digest. It
true,
could be very fun.
Maybe we'll have a whole episode on it.
Well, yeah, it's fun when you get into the research of the evolution of anything.
Yes.
Like there are so many interesting hypotheses for like, why is this like this? Because it's fun because so many of these hypotheses remain in competition for a very long time, because it's it's
We don't have as much like new evidence supporting one model over the other or something. Or
And then we find out in 2016 that tegus are endothermic. So, it's...
Yeah, that's something
blows
throws
the
a
whole
wrench
thing
in
out.
it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's so fun.
Yeah. In that one study that I mentioned where they looked at tegu body heat over a year, those tegus were only about 2 kilograms. So they weren't full adults. They were young animals. And it's been hypothesized that at 10 kilograms, which is larger than currently tegus reach, but based on like the data that they got on these younger and smaller animals, it is hypothesized that at 10 kilograms or 22 pounds, tegus could attain thermoregulation that rivals birds and mammals.
Ooh.
If they were just 2 kilograms heavier.
If they were big boys, we think that they could
Even bigger boys.
do cool things.
Do cool things. Yeah.
Because if you're bigger, you have a bigger core. You can hold that heat better. You have more muscles that have mitochondria in them, like all that stuff. Like absolutely wild.
That's so cool.
And they do all this without the obvious advantage of birds and mammals having, insulating fur and feathers.
Yeah.
So if they had fur, oh man, they'd rule the world.
Yeah, because they're just losing so much heat to the environment through their scales. Yeah,
absolutely. Another fun example that I've heard people talk about before, I don't know how many people actually know about this, but Atlantic bluefin tuna have a little bit of endothermy going on as well, because in general fish do not, but they are actually using their muscles to warm themselves as they swim. Yeah. And the more they swim, the faster they can swim, because they're just like heating themselves up by contracting their muscles a whole bunch, kind of like how the pythons are shivering to warm their eggs.
Yeah.
Which is like, that feels like, that's like a mechanical endothermy.
Yes.
That's like a very different thing.
Yes,
yeah, because like
absolutely.
even like bees and moths and butterflies and things will like shiver their wings to like get going.
Yeah.
Which feels very different than like the chemical kind of endothermy, because that's like, that takes a lot of strange genetic molecular kind of things happening there.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Although, like, I remember talking about the tuna difference in my anatomy and physiology classes in college, and even though it is like not true endothermy, they are adapted for that too, that they have like the same like concurrent heat exchange with their gills as like ducks and geese would in their legs, to keep, their core body temperature up when their legs are in the freezing cold water.
Yeah.
So that when their blood is going to exchange oxygen and breathe through the water, like they're able to conserve their heat in their core body. Yeah. So like they have some like adaptations to maintain whatever pseudo endothermy they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's these weird outliers that make me like really excited for like this weird branch of like kind of unexplored science of endothermy. Like the evolution of it, whatever, I'll let other people fight that over. It's interesting, but it's not that interesting to me. I like the mechanics behind it. I think it's fascinating, and it's interesting how so many different animals are going against what is expected of them and figuring out a way to make it work.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there is no always in nature. We say
absolutely not.
A lot of the time on this podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tegus are cool. They'll bite your face if you let them. And they're endothermic. And I never knew that about them, which is crazy.
Don't let them bite your face.
Should we let them bite our face?
Their jaws are insane.
Only during the breeding
4%,
season.
4% of their body mass. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, thank you, Nicole. That was an amazing episode. I
Thanks.
learned a lot, and it makes me happy to think of like these common pet animals again, like putting them back into their natural landscape of like the grasslands of Argentina and stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you, listener, for listening to this podcast. The Best Biome is produced through our nonprofit GrasslandGroupies, which is dedicated to inspiring conservation of grasslands. In the show notes, you can find our website, social media accounts, phone number, all that stuff. If you enjoyed the show and want to support us, tell your friends about us or leave us a review on your podcast listening review place of choice, Spotify, etc. We couldn't do this without your support. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you again next month. Bye.
Bye.
Don't wait. Do you want a snooze fest for the post credits? You ready for this?
Snooze fest?
Snooze fest.
Okay.
So the reason
Yeah, give us a snooze fest, Nicole. Let's go.
you don't have to use it, but you know,
Please.
if you want a little easy listening to put you to sleep after that exciting Tegu talk,
Yeah.
I attempted to read a paper about how mitochondria work in Tegus. I didn't understand any of it, and that's why I didn't go into it in the main episode.
It's a little too dry, yeah.
I had no idea what they were saying. But here we go. Here's the results section of this paper.
Oh my God.
It's one paragraph. During spring, the muscle fibers exhibited increased oxidative phosphorylation. They also enhanced uncoupled respiration and heat production via adenine nucleotide translocase, ANT.
You already took me out.
But not via uncoupling proteins, UCP. Citrate synthase activity was higher during the spring, suggesting greater mitochondrial density compared to the summer. These findings were consistent across both sexes and muscle types, red and white. Conclusion: the current results highlight potential cellular thermogenic mechanisms in the ectothermic reptile that contribute to transient endothermy. I got bored reading that sentence.
Hell yeah.
Our study indicates that the unique feature of transitioning to endothermy through non-shivering thermogenesis during the reproductive phase may be facilitated by higher mitochondrial density function and uncoupling within the skeletal muscles. This knowledge contributes significant elements to the broader picture of models for the evolution of endothermy, particularly in relation to the enhancement of aerobic capacity.
Nice. That's great information.
This is why science communication is critical.
Yeah.
That communicated nothing.
It's so much. I underlined
God.
2 of those sentences and then Googled all the words I didn't know, and that's when I came up with like the 3-sentence recap that I gave you guys instead.
Nice.
So you're welcome.
Yep. See,
Thank you for the
that's
translation.
what we needed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to see YouTube try and caption that. That's great. Cool.
Yeah. So you're welcome for breaking that down for you, because I really
Thank
tried to go in more in depth in it. I didn't understand anything they were saying.
Good lordy. Okay. Yeah.
Well, have a good night, listener. I'm glad that we were able to put you to sleep here at the
Yeah.
end of this episode. I hope you
Nighty
weren't
night.
driving.
We're tucking you in right now.
Aw. Give
a
our
forehead
listener
kiss.
a kiss. Yeah.
Yeah. Do they tail whip cattle a lot?
What?
You know, well, the episode's over. Think about have sweet dreams. Bye-bye.
Bye.